Moin, meteorites. My name is Polaris, and I'm here to make you laugh a lot. I thought I would kind of introduce myself to the internet through something I'm very familiar with, that being PowerPoint presentations, so let's get right into it. Like I said, my name's Polaris, but you get the luxury of calling me Larry with one R and an I because I'm eccentric. I do also happen to be a shape-shifting alien from the planet of who's maintaining a human form for the sake of simplicity. My human suit does have a couple of quirks, so I've got some human words to explain who I am, how I am, what I'm doing with my life, that kind of stuff. For example, because my human suit has medical quirks, I identify as disabled. I do also identify as non-binary, meaning I like they, them pronouns, but I'm not opposed to gendered language. This means that you can say, yeah boy, or call me a pretty lady, or just keep it neutral and call me an absolute idiot. I am steeped in tism-riz. I feel like the fact that I'm charismatic is very easy to see, but the fact that I am nuance deficient due to being on the autism spectrum might be easy to miss, so I wanted to go ahead and get it out of the way over here. I'm really excited to look back at this presentation in like a year or two and just be like, wow, I thought that was a good idea, or wow, there's a graphical error on the very first slide, good job, Larry. So you can't read me for those things, but don't worry, I will give you things to complain about in the comments later in the presentation. I do speak both English and German, aber ich finde mein Deutsch ein bisschen schlecht. I don't think my German's that great. I did spend a lot of time learning it, so I thought it would be fun to maybe make some videos where I speak exclusively in German. That way I can not lose that entire part of my brain. Planning to make content on games that I'm playing on my Switch 2 as well as on my PC. I'm also very passionate about music, so I'd like to make some covers as well as do these things that I think I'm going to call Larry Learns, where I'm just kind of bad at a new skill for a bit. I feel like the way people learn isn't very accurately represented online because it's very awkward and kind of embarrassing to be bad at something, right? But lucky for y'all, I don't really have a sense of embarrassment, so I thought it would be fun if I tried new skills and was bad at them in public for general consumption. Over on the right side of this slide, I wanted to give a super brief introduction to some people that you might see in some of my content. I guess I'll get started with the dog down in the bottom left because that's the obvious outlier here. This is Mr. Sweetie Baby. He is my working service dog. His legal name is not Mr. Sweetie Baby, but in the event that I am somehow recognized in my human form or in my ethereal goop form, I don't want him to be distracted by someone saying his actual name. So online, he's going to be called Mr. Sweetie Baby. Sometimes Sweetie, sometimes Mr. Baby. He's mostly husky, and he's with me a lot because he works a lot. He's gonna show up at some point. The other people that I've got on this slide are Yilden in the top left with the green lines, Halsey in the top right in blue, and Comet in the bottom right with the yellow outlines. I thought that a great way to get to know me would be just to kind of talk about my special interests. I've got 3 slides going over some of those. I thought I'd start by just kind of talking about what a special interest is, or a spin. A special interest is a long-term, maybe even lifelong passion for a specific activity or topic. For me, it's typically intellectual properties or IPs that an autistic person, or sometimes even just a neurodivergent person, really latches onto and really enjoys. So for me, something I really enjoy is Animal Crossing and Pokemon. I could talk about either of these things for literal hours on end. And who knows, maybe I will. I think info dump videos sound like a good idea for me. I'm also borderline encyclopedic about Undertale. I was just gonna put Toby Fox, although I'm really behind on Deltarune. Toby Fox does happen to also be one of my favorite musicians. You'll see that on my special interest musician slide. I really feel like how he writes music and how he writes games has a really cool intersection. And again, it makes me stim and explode a little bit on the inside, so it's definitely a special interest, but specifically because I haven't played Deltarune, I thought I would just put Undertale on the list for today. Genshin Impact is a little bit harder to have a cohesive knowledge of because the writing is sometimes a little bit confusing. I do also recognize that their art team is allergic to melanin. This doesn't mean there aren't other parts of the game that I can enjoy, or the franchise that I enjoy. For example, I really love how the cultures are integrated, how the game plays, how the music is written, that kind of stuff. So I still allow myself to be passionate about Genshin Impact while also recognizing that there are problems with it. A more general special interest of mine does happen to be farming games. Some of them also have problematic writing, but something just makes my brain smooth about planting crops and watering the crops and making stuff or selling the crops. I don't know why. I just become a chicken breast in my skull when farming games are being played. Some of the more niche special interests I have include fables, fairy tales, and Arthurian lore. That's stories that have King Arthur in them. I really like investigating how the same stories get told over and over again through different eras and different cultures, especially with the common thread of ATU codes now being out there. Similarly, I have smooth brain for disability studies. This one's a little bit harder to explain, but as someone who uses a disabled flesh mech, I get really excited when I see myself or other members of my community in different media, but there's a lot of media where being disabled is kind of used as a prop instead of as like a piece of the story. I could talk for hours about disability studies and specifically how they relate to different fables and fairy tales. That's a whole video by itself. I just thought I'd bring it up here because I feel like that's one of my quirks. Like, how many shape-shifting alien PNGTubers that are making content on YouTube in 2025 do you know that are passionate about fairy tales and disability studies? Probably just one. Some of my other interests do include what I just call Animal Crossing in real life. This is gardening, making crafts or art, decorating. With art, I actually really like to doodle and draw specifically, but I do also have a passion for tactile crafts. I really want to try getting into doll customization because of this, but doll customization is kind of a lot, so I thought a fun Larry Learns video would be to maybe attempt customizing a Littlest Pet Shop. They are smaller vinyl figures, and I hear that that's a good way to get familiar with using like MSC and different types of paints and stuff. Another one of my major interests does include writing, specifically short form or long form fiction and poetry. I do also write music. I really like to sing, so I'm really hoping to make some covers, ideally in 1 or 2 takes instead of being the hyper edited covers that we tend to see published online. Not that there's anything wrong with those. I just feel like failure is important to the human experience, and something that's a failure to a professional isn't necessarily a failure to a viewer. Great job, Larry. Good job explaining. I've got 2 more slides for y'all today, just kind of delving into some of my favorite games, whether they're special interests or not. And then the last slide is going to be some of my special interest musicians, because I feel like a really good way to know a lot about someone's lifelong experience is to know about their favorite musicians and favorite games. Like I said earlier, Animal Crossing is a lifelong special interest for me. I think my favorite types of villagers are probably normal, big sister, and cranky. Lazy scare me. Have you ever seen a lazy in a place that they should not be talking about bugs? Haunts my nightmares. Another lifelong special interest that I have favorite games for is going to be Pokemon, but I couldn't really pick a favorite Pokemon game. Animal Crossing is pretty solid on New Horizons being my favorite Animal Crossing game. I have like 500 hours in that game. But with Pokemon, there's a lot of different Pokemon games that I have like triple digits hours in, like Heart Gold, Fire Red, as well as some of the more niche ones like the original Pokemon Ranger, Pokemon Conquest. I guess Legends Arceus isn't niche because we've got ZA coming out, but all sorts of Pokemon content. I do also have from my special interests list Gacha Anime Limbo featuring Emergency Rations over here listed as my favorite games. That is a very long-winded way to explain Genshin Impact. I do overall like really enjoy the gameplay and how the different team compositions and elemental reactions impact the gameplay, so it's still going to be listed as a favorite game for me. Similarly, Rune Factory 4 is a farming game. It's one of my favorite games. The writing is atrocious. It has some of the most sexist and exclusionary writing I have ever seen. But the gameplay loop. So Rune Factory 4 is another one of those games that I do recognize has problems, and I do personally have problems with, but it is still one of my favorites. Kind of an outlier from the games I've talked about so far is Persona 5 Royale. I haven't done a proper deep dive into Shin Megami Tensei or Persona yet, so I didn't feel comfortable listing P5R as a special interest, but I do really like this game. I really love the interplay between characters. I really love the storytelling. I really love the aesthetic. I'd really love to try playing some more Persona games, specifically 3 and 4, just because they have similar but different close relationships between all those elements that I really like in Persona 5. I grew up playing a lot of Civilization Revolutionized War, Civ Rev for those in the know. This has evolved into playing way too much Civilization 7. I think I'm on like my 9th or 10th campaign right now. So I'm going to go ahead and call that a favorite game, even though it hasn't been out for nearly as long as everything else on this list. Because of the games I like to play and because of games that I want to branch out into playing, I figured I'd go ahead and list my games to try or games that I would like to make videos about. A good one to start with is Stellaris. It looks like Civilization but outer space. That sounds great to me, so I figured I'd give it a try. I like Genshin Impact. I also like having a challenge and maybe not enjoying myself, so I thought a completely free-to-play Genshin Impact run would be fun. Maybe also an interesting way to kind of get developer attention about problems that players have with the game. Because I'm very passionate about Toby Fox's artwork, Deltarune's obviously at the top of my games to try list. I'm hoping for Deltarune coverage to be some of the first videos I make, as well as hopefully Monster Hunter Wilds. I do spook very, 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 very easily. I get jump scared by the lamest things. So games like Monster Hunter Wilds and Breath of the Wild are probably... People enjoy watching people be scared on the internet, so maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to just be screaming into my microphone for a little while trying out new games. In the same vein, I really love the writing of horror games. My amygdala does not. I do have a couple downloaded that I've never touched. I have an anxiety disorder. But again, that could be to my benefit in a situation like this. So some of the games I already have downloaded are Lost in Vivo, Cry of Fear, Yume Nikki, Hellblade, and both Yomawari games. I also have Guilty Gear Strive downloaded. I'm not good at fighting games. I'm the Smash Bros. Player that picks Great Cave Offensive. I play with items on and just knock you off the edge over and over and over again. That's not really conducive to good fighting gameplay in my opinion, but it is how I have fun. I thought it would be interesting to kind of branch out into maybe some more standardized ways to enjoy fighting games. And Guilty Gear Strive has pretty ladies, pretty sounds, pretty artwork. And I got it pretty on sale. So I feel like Guilty Gear Strive would be a good game to kind of branch out with as well, even though it's different from the kind of stuff I usually play. The last thing I wanted to get into super briefly are some of my special interest musicians. I have a specific column for info dump inspiration. These 3 bullet points make up most of my personality. I've already talked about Annoying Dogman, Toby Fox. The other group of artists that I have listed in my infodump inspiration list are Yelia Williams and Co. and Gerard Way and Co. These 2 bullets are Hayley Williams, Paramore, as well as Gerard Way and the band MCR or My Chemical Romance. I think This Is Why is probably my favorite album of all time. That's the most recent Paramore album that came out. I'm also really big on 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge, and like every emo, Welcome to the Black Parade. Colleen Atwood did the costumes. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to not thoroughly enjoy it? If there's any interest at all in doing like musician deep dives, I would probably start off with someone on this list. Some other special interest musicians of mine that I can talk about for a long time, but to a lesser extent, do include my dad, the Grim Reaper live streamer. If you know, you know. And if you don't, that's Mori Calliope from Hololive EN. I am really passionate about her writing style, both her and her roommate. I really like how they try a lot of different genres all the time. I also just find Callie to be very personable and funny, and I relate to her a lot. An American band I'm fond of is Mother Mother. You're probably familiar with them from Hayloft. That was going around on TikTok for a while. Their Grief Chapter album is another one of my top albums right now. I definitely recommend giving it a listen. From Ireland, I do have 2 absolute favorites, Soda Blonde and the Cranberries. Soda Blonde's kinda niche, so I don't expect many people to really know who they are, but the Cranberries, Zombie, Dreams, Ode to My Family. There's a million different Cranberry songs that got popular in the US that people are probably familiar with. And the last 3 musicians might not seem to have a lot in common, but they do, I promise. All 3 of these musicians are Japanese. That is Calafina, Eve, and Deco27. I think I started getting into J-rock and J-alternative music through Eve because he was doing both Vocaloid music and anime openings. And Calafina is known for a lot of their anime openings, and Deco27 is known for a lot of his Vocaloid work. I feel like these three artists really encapsulate my interest in Japanese music pretty well. Calafina has the perfect blend of choral and pop or punk music. If I could be in a vocal performance group, I would want to be in a group like Calafina. If anybody has one like that, let me know. And then on the complete other end of the spectrum, we have Deco27, who I think makes fun beats. Controversial opinion, I really dislike Ghost Rule. Argue with me in the comments below. You're going to be arguing with yourself. I'm going to look at that comment and be like, oh, that's nice. I still don't like Ghost Rule. But I feel like getting to know some of my favorite musicians, some of my favorite games is a good way to get to know me. Again, I just wanted to kind of get a little feel for the internet and give the internet a little feel for myself. Hopefully this goes cringely enough that I will look back on it and laugh instead of looking back on it and curling up into a bed with my blanket over my head. That's going to do it for me today. So I'm going to go ahead and say tschüss, tschüss. I'll see you soon.